Hey everybody, Ryan here from Monster Pond Bass, and it's been a long time coming, but today's the day where I decided to make a instructional video on my Wacky Senko fishing. I've had a lot of requests, especially with the fish recently that I've been posting up on YouTube and my Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. So I've done a lot of research, and I just have not found anything that's going to be, in my opinion, this instructional for you to give you the tips, the tools, and techniques to go out there and catch that monster bass and post it on my Facebook page, right, Monster Pond Bass. And just to set the expectations of my audience, right? It doesn't matter if you're a shore angler, right? It doesn't matter if you're a pond angler. It doesn't matter if you have a boat. I'm going to give you plenty of tools today to go out and just kill bass. So that's my goal. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to say is that how I learned to Wacky Senko fish. It's kind of funny. I went to Lake Fork, Texas one year, and I got a guide. And like I'm assuming all of you would, I went on and I read all the reports, and I said, hey, what baits, what colors, what depth are these fish going to be in? And I went to Cabela's and I bought all of it, right? I spent like $300. And I get on a plane and I go to Lake Fork, Texas, and I get on the guide's boat, and he looks at me and he goes, what's all this? I said, well, this is what I'm going to throw today. He goes, take all of this and go put it back in your car. And I was kind of like, are you serious? He's like, yep. He's like, on this boat, you're throwing one thing, and that's a Wacky Senko. And ever since that day, first off, that day I killed bass, slammed them on the Wacky Senko, and he really taught me a lot of good things, and I've applied even further now. So that's how I got started fishing the Wacky Senko. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is the hooks that I use. Okay, I've seen a lot of hooks on the market. Okay, I've been to Dick's and Cabela's and Bass Pro, and the first thing that I want to say to you guys right now is the hook that I mainly use, you can't even buy it at any of those places I just named. Right, Academy if you live out that way. Right. Okay, the name of the company of the hook that I use is called Bayou Tackle, and they're actually out of Texas. Okay, here it is. I don't have the packaging with me, but Bayou Tackle. Okay. This hook is amazing for a couple reasons. Okay, number one is that if you can see it, first off, it doesn't have a jig head. It doesn't have a hard barbed wire. Okay, in my opinion, those types of hooks, attract slop and muck and grass and weeds, and as soon as anything just kind of gets on there and you drag it through, you're going to get everything else with it. Okay, in my opinion, this is the best weedless hook for Wacky Senko fishing on the market, for even further reasons. Okay, number one, it's weighted, and there's multiple different weights. Okay, personally, I use 1/16 3/0 if I'm going to fish a 5-inch worm. Okay, or I use a 1/16 4/0 if I'm going to fish a 6-inch worm. Monster Pond Bass, my go-to is the 6-inch, which I'll get to in a second. Okay, but you cannot even buy this hook in the store. Okay, there's nothing like it, and guys who fish, a Wacky Senko with no weed guard, no, that's a no-go for me. Okay, the other hook that I use, which I'll explain why I use this hook, is the Gamakatsu Wicked Wacky. Okay, this one has no weight. Okay, but more importantly, the reason why I like it is because it has this weed guard. It doesn't have a clip. It doesn't have a hard barbed wire. Okay, it just has a very soft weed guard, and this will allow you to throw this in a lot of places, whether you're on the pond, right, and there's muck in front of you and you're casting over it, right, or if you're on the boat and you want to cast onto the muck and then drag it off and let it drop, or you want to pitch it into a hole. I mean, you can get very creative with a Wacky Senko fishing, very creative. Okay, but these are the two hooks that I use. Okay, when I will use these per application. Okay, windy, I'm using this hook because I can feel the weight more. Okay, no wind and I'm fishing shallow, I'm going to fish this hook all day. Okay, now Bayou also makes this hook in multiple different weights, right? Like you can do 3/16, right? I'll fish that a 3/0. I'll fish a 1/8 4/0. They even make what's called a power wedge. For those of you guys that are fishing in 15, 20, 30 feet of water on your boat, here you go. This is the one. I would throw a Wacky on this all day long, on a ledge, on a point, a secondary point, channels, etc. Okay, but these are the hooks that I use. Okay, and most importantly, I just want to point out one last time that these are the best hooks in my opinion because they don't have a jig head, They don't have a hard barbed wire, and in my opinion, these are really, really weedless, great hooks to use. I will use these hooks all day long. Okay, so pick these up. Okay. All right, next order of business is the Wacky tool. Okay, so you can go to Tackle Warehouse and get this tool. Okay, so here they are. Now, I only use this tool if I'm throwing a 6-inch. Okay, and the reason why is because the weight of a 6-inch worm is very, very heavy. Okay, so when you're casting this out there, right, and you wing it, the weight of the worm more than likely is going to rip, and you're going to go through a lot of worms. Okay, so I'm not saying that you can't use the same tool, right, for the 5-inch, because I have that tool too, but I really don't think it's necessary. Okay, I also do not like the O-rings. I don't think that the worm has the same action. So on Tackle Warehouse, it's called the Wacky Saddle Kit. Excuse me. And this is where it's at right here. Okay? So what you do is you take your tool and your Wacky Saddle Kit and you put this over here, like so. And then you bring this, right, all the way to the edge, just like that. Okay? You're ready to go. Now this is very important. I don't care what anybody tells you. You do not offset the worm, right? Some guys will say, oh, well, if I'm a Wacky Senko, I want it lopsided, or I want a little weight on, over here more than there. It gives more action. No, it doesn't. Right in the center, boom. This is the filet mignon right here, okay, of pond fishing. Or if you're on a boat or you're in a cove, etc. It doesn't matter where you are, but right here, this is it. This is the action that you want. So there's a line, right, on the worms that I use. Right, I only use a Gary Yamamoto. That's it. Okay, I'm not saying that you can't use a knockoff brand, etc. But the most important thing, which I'll get to in a second, is more prevalence of color. Okay, but I use Gary Yamamoto, so there it is. So I'm going to stick this in here like so, and there's a line on the worm. As soon as you see that line, there it is. Okay, this is it. Whack whack. Okay. So that is the Wacky Saddle Kit. So again, I would only use this if I'm going to use a 6-inch. I don't think it's necessary for the 5, but you can use it and you'll save a lot of worms. Okay. Now, the next best thing is how to hook it, right? So I'm not sure if you can see this very well, but you're not hooking the worm. Okay. You're taking the hook and you're putting it through the rubber. Okay. So once it goes on, okay, it's on, right? Like you can't take it off and change your bait or whatever. If you want to take this off, you just rip it and it's just a toss away. Okay. But this is it. The weedless Monster Pond Wacky Senko right here. Okay. So now I've shown you the hooks. Okay. Now as far as the worms, okay. Tackle Warehouse. I buy bulk Gary Yamamoto. Okay. So these are the 5-inch. Right. The only 2 colors that I use. I mean, I can't even tell you how many colors I've seen about people that make Senkos. Okay, I only use 2 colors. I live in a box. I keep it very simple. I use watermelon red if it's sunny, okay, or the water is clear. Watermelon red all day long. Okay, black and blue if it's cloudy or it's very muddy water, not very visible. Right, that's it. Not watermelon candy, watermelon green pumpkin, watermelon purple flake, watermelon black and red. No. Watermelon red, black and blue. Not black and blue chartreuse, not black, blue, and purple, not just 2 colors. That's the only ones that I use. And I'm showing you these because I buy in bulk because these are the only 2 colors that I use. Okay? That's the worm. Okay, the line. This is a very important tool for you to bake this cake. Okay? I don't have the box with me because I just buy it and then I just toss it. Okay? But this is the line right here. Berkeley Fireline Crystal. Okay? This line is this is my favorite line to put on a spinning all day long. Okay? This is translucent. Okay? Low underwater visibility. It's smoother than ever. Okay? And with this line, I can feel at all times where my worm is. I can feel the weight of the worm at all times. Okay? And the reason why the guide likes this in Lake Fork, Texas is because, in Lake Fork there's a lot of timber, right? So you can't use a line that's not going to rip. I mean, yeah, you can use braid, but I mean, I'm not going to use braid to fish Senko, okay? This is the only line that I use. I highly recommend this line. I use 10 pound Berkeley Fireline Crystals, the blue box. And I can promise you right now, you will not be disappointed. You can drag this line over anything you want. It will not rip. It will not tear. If your fish gets hung up in the muck, it's almost like braid. You can yank it right out of there with no problem. I have a high hookup ratio on this line, and I highly, highly recommend this line. Okay. Now, when it comes to the rod, this is, again, another very important tool. So, my preference is the St. Croix Mojo Bass Wacky style. Right? If you wanted to be a bartender, you wouldn't go ask your grandmother, right? You'd probably ask a bartender. Well, St. Croix makes a rod that is specifically designed, right, for this style of fishing. It just has the right bend, it has the right tip, it has the right flex. It allows me to set the hook on these fish with authority, but not yank it out of their mouth, right? So, if you were going to go out and use one of your own rods, right, and you didn't want to go out and buy this rod, okay, I think that the specs are very important when it comes to Wacky Senko fishing, right? So this rod is 6'8". It's medium. It's not medium heavy. I would use a medium all day. Tip on this tip is extra fast, but go with fast or extra fast. This is from 6 to 12 pound. That's why I use the 10 pound, right? And this can only throw 3/16 to 5/8, right? So we're all bass enthusiasts, right? We all are addicted to the sport. It's only 110 bucks. I would highly recommend go out and buy this rod and get all of these tools that I'm describing to you all lined up, reeled up, ready to go on your boat, ready for the pond, and you will be highly successful. When it comes to the reel, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what reel to use. I mean, that's completely up to you. I use a Shimano. The reel doesn't matter. All that I care about is that you're not using one that's too fast, like a 7 gear, or one that's too slow, like a 5 gear, right? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you today, what reels to use. Okay, so far I've shown you the hook, the colors of the worm, the Wacky Saddle toolkit, the line, the rod. Okay, so now it's time to tie it on. Okay, so this is very important. I know a lot of you know how to tie a knot. Okay, but I use a palomar knot. Okay, so what I do is, here's my line. This is very simple. I actually tie everything. I don't care if it's a swim bait. I don't care what it is. This is the only knot that I tie. I don't do the twist one. Okay, so you will not lose fish on this knot, I promise. Right, so right here, you bend your line, so there's 2. Okay, you put this through. Now watch how easy this is. You're going to tie your shoe, just like so. Okay, now you're going to have a tag end, which is going to be over here, and then you're going to have a loop. There we go. Okay? Now, you're going to take your bait, and you're going to take the entire bait, and you're going to put it through the loop. Like that. Now you're going to take your tag end and pull. That's it. Just like that. You're done. Now, just to be secure, you're going to tie your shoe one more time, and you're done. That's it. On this line, you will not lose fish. You will set the hook, you will drive it right through them, and you will be successful, I promise. That's it, right here. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is really how I fish this, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but I at least want to describe to you, the most important things about when you're fishing this, what's going to happen on the water, okay? So number one, it's going to hit it on the fall 90% of the time, okay? So what I mean by that is, hold on, I need a little bit more. So either number one, it's going to hit it on the fall when you cast it out. So when you cast it out, as soon as it hits the water, close your spool and be ready to go, right? And it's going to flutter down. Okay, so be ready. It's either going to hit it on the fall, on the cast, okay? If it doesn't, let it sit, let it reach the bottom, okay? And all you're going to do, you're going to bring it up, twitch, twitch, and then let it fall, okay? The most important thing that I can tell you is that the guide, it took me at least a good half hour to really get the feel for this until I started slamming fish in Texas the first time I ever did this, but you never, and he yelled at me like 3 times, never reel in the worm. You're only reeling in slack. Okay, that's the most important advice I can give you when fishing this. Okay, you're never ever reeling it. If you're going to reel in the worm, that means that you're going to recast it out. Okay, never reel in the worm. You're only reeling in slack. I always know where my worm is. Always. I'm constantly knowing where it is. I constantly feel it at all times. Okay? When the fish bites it, okay? If you feel one tick, okay? One tick, do not set the hook yet. One tick means it either grabbed it on the side, right? Or it just kind of touched it. It has not committed to it yet. Okay? If you feel this, 2 ticks, that means it bit it and then it turned it. And that means it's game time. Rip it right through its lip and forehead. Okay? But feel for 2 ticks. Okay, so sometimes it'll be 1 tick, not yet. 2 ticks, set the hook, and sometimes it'll just feel like a Mack truck and it'll just slam it and you'll watch your line go the whole 9 yards. Okay? So that is really my go-to. I mean, if I was gonna, choose one setup, right? I mean, I don't ever go to a pond and I have 5 rods with spinners and cranks and this and that. I mean, mainly when I'm pond fishing after swim bait season, right? Pre-spawn. Once that grass comes, this is it. Monster Pond Bass, Mojo Bass, Wacky Senko, 6-inch watermelon red or 6-inch black and blue. There's nothing wrong with fishing the 5-inch, right? If you've never fished Wacky Senko before, I would start with the 5, right? Because the 6 is a little heavier. But that's it. So hopefully I have shown you some tools, tips, and techniques for you to go out, whether you're on the boat or whether you're a short angler, to go out and fish the Wacky Senko. If you go out and hook a monster, I would appreciate if you post it on my page. So follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.